on the show today, I have one of my favorite comedians. I'm excited. Comedian Modi is just the best. And he is been in the game for a very long time. I'm excited to talk about his history and his coming up in the game because he came up at a time where uh, it was different than it is today, where people get discovered, get stage time. He grinded it out. Not that other people don't grind it out, but I mean, literally, it was different. You've seen him on episodes of Crashing. He's got a new special on YouTube from our friends over at 800 Pound Gorilla. We love those guys. This guy's really funny. Modi, thanks for hanging out today. I appreciate it.
So happy to be on with you.
Well, you're very funny, and your sense of humor is great, and all of the things. So I want to start out with your coming up in the game because you were part of a time for the Just for Laughs, where that was a thing where people would go and become part of this machine, so to speak, and that's how comedians got discovered recently. That we learned that Just for Laughs is no longer anymore, at least for now, which is kind of unfortunate because I think that was a really cool thing that happened, and you made your way up, and here you are. I'm interested to know, just talking about your background and things like. What were some of your experiences coming up in the game? We were joking beforehand, just as a preface, that he was on an episode of Crashing, where he played a version of himself, but learning that was like pretty accurate display of who he is as a person. So let's just talk about your experience, my friend, and sort of what it's been like coming up in the comedy game.
Interesting you brought up and began with Just for Laughs. My first time doing Just for Laughs was in 97,
Yeah.
1997. They had a show called The Bar Mitzvah Show, which I was a shoe-in. Back then, Willie Mercer was actually doing auditions and saw me, and I did this cantorial bit thing, and he was just, this is perfect. And so I went and did that show, and it was a main stage show. It wasn't one of the new faces. So even though I've been doing comedy only 2 years full time, I was not on the new face. I was on a show with like comedians that had been on for 15 years. Um, and I'm trying to think who the first, it was big names. I didn't realize it at the time, were on that show.
I
And
think
so I
Alonzo
never,
Bode was one of them because it was just, it was a cool time for comedy. I'll say that.
it was a very strange time for comedy. It was also a very messy time for comedy. Back then, the industry, the networks and the film houses, when they would go to Just for Laughs and they'd see some comic with a tight 6 minutes, and they would offer him like $250,000 to sign on to develop, and none of those deals ever developed. None of those deals, and then
Never,
they
ever,
realized,
ever did they develop.
right, then they realized, oh, that's not how it works. Just because this guy has 6 minutes and he's kind of cute and he has a little story about how his mother was a single mom and his dad was an alcoholic, and okay, it's not going to work because he doesn't have an act. Um, and and then so that was a whole big thing back in the day of Just for Laughs. But I did the Just for Laughs festival a few times. Again, never on the new faces, always on a gala, always on some kind of a show called the Ethnic Show or the Bar Mitzvah Show, or just the Best of, they used to call it. And it's fun. And now, now I'm going to Montreal and Toronto and selling out huge theaters on my own without Just for Laughs. And that's been so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was listening to a podcast lately with Sam Morrell and Mark Norman, both who have been on the show, and they said something interesting. It was like, I think the last comedian we had was Gianmarco Ceresi, who was Just for Laughs New Faces, one of the last in that class before it just unfortunately went bankrupt, and probably because they were giving holding deals to, to everybody with a tight six, and none of them ever developed. And he said something like that you just said, in the sense of like none of those deals ever like went through. Um, but now here you are 20 some years or so later and you're selling out theaters. So it has to feel validating, right? As a comedian, like even though they kind of put you in an interesting grouping, um, now you're just killing it. So it feels good,
It's
right?
It feels great, but you were great when you began. You said I didn't have a comedy career like where I did grind it out and I worked harder than many comedians, but I had a niche. Like you said, that episode of Crashing, where I was in the Jewish world. So besides doing the Comedy Cellar and touring once in a while with Stuttering John and a bunch of like regular comics doing comedy clubs, I was doing synagogues where you get to a town and it's like 800 seats. It's a theater. You're doing a theater. It's a synagogue. It's 800 seats. And I had that and galas and fundraisers. And that was what that episode was about. It was a synagogue show. And they have something depressing. And then they bring me on. And that's why my podcast is called And Here's Modi, because I'm always following in those situations some like horrible film or some horrible speech raising money. I just did a show in London. We were in London for this amazing event called Tikva, which means hope, and it's for Ukrainian orphans. And it was amazing. It was in London. Joan Collins was there. Duchess of York, Fergie was in the front row. And before I went on, they had this orphan, this young, beautiful girl who'd been through hell, abused by her father, her stepfather, and then they got their life together, and then the war from Russia began. And literally, she tells the story. People are bawling. Then the head of the chairperson comes on and goes, and now here's Modi. And so I had that kind of besides the regular comedy clubs, I had that kind of a world going, and and things really took a turn in my career when my husband took over all the bookings. During COVID, we were stuck home and I was doing characters, and my husband sold his business and began working on mine. And that's when I went from having 7,000 followers to 300,000 followers and more, actually 307,000 followers now. So, and getting the word out and able to pack seats and shows, and he built on the community that I already had, the Jews. So we had the Jewish community, and now we have the Goyim, the gays, and the theys. Now we have a whole new genre of people putting their butts in seats, and that's in short, that's been the journey, and it's been a fun one.
Yeah, I like the fact this part of your career where you're performing in synagogues and places like that. There was a comedian that was on another show and talking about churches and preachers and priests and pastors. They have like a built, if anybody could be a stand-up comedian, so to speak, it could be them, because they have these audiences that are like automatically built in, and they just feel somehow obligated to laugh at their jokes, because they're just, sometimes there's jokes in sermons. My point is like, you had a unique experience of coming up in this world, and it is translated successfully now to selling out theaters all over the country, selling out clubs wherever you're performing. And I think it's so cool. I want to talk to you about your writing style. It's
I wanna just not braze over what you just said. Let's just
no, go ahead.
let's reverse let's just read back what you said. Those built-in audiences, when a rabbi or a priest goes up and they're funny, it's not a big deal because they're not expected to be funny.
Right.
So if they twist a little story of the Bible, they said, like when the Jews went through when Moses parted the Red Sea for the Jews, right? Everybody knows that one. That was a big one. Okay. And then the Jews are on the other side. All the Egyptians have been killed, and now the Jews are on the other side, and they're hungry. And they say to Moses, "You brought us here to die. You couldn't have left us in Egypt." So any rabbi that says that in a funny way gets a big laugh.
Yeah.
Because altogether they're looking. This is a rabbi, and he made a joke. So wow, it's great. He's a funny rabbi, but he's not going up there. When you're a comic, you go up there, you're literally saying to them, I'm here, I'm going to make you laugh. It's a different vibe. Priests, and especially in the Black world, they have an extra something. If you watch Cat Williams, I mean, he's preaching and he's putting jokes and he's obviously putting curses, but he's it's a different genre. Also, what's his name? The Sam Kinison. He was also with the priest timing, the church timing, and with the yelling and all that. But just because you have a built-in audience, that doesn't mean you're funny.
No, that's
Yeah,
very true.
yeah.
There's another comedian, Justin Smith, who we talked to a while ago. He started out as a pastor, a youth pastor, and then realized he had a very special and unique skill set and was able to take that and monetize it and turn it into a comedy career. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I've heard it said that there are people who can be funny around their friends and make people laugh, but getting up on stage and trying to make people laugh and writing jokes, it's a whole different genre of things. Like, especially going to an open mic or whatever the case might be, it's very different. I just did my first open mic a week or so ago. It's different. It's nothing like you could ever possibly imagine. It's exciting, horrifying, terrifying, nerve wracking, everything you can imagine, all in one 5 minute set. Um, so much respect.
I
Um,
don't I first of all, what you're saying is yes, there's a table comic, and that's where it begins. I used to go to work, investment banking, come home and have dinner with friends and imitate the secretaries and talk and make my friends laugh. And because I knew the table, my special is called Know Your Audience. So
yeah.
when you're sitting at a table with your friends, you know the audience, you know what everybody knows about each other. So when you make a joke that Billy bet on the Rams and lost $100 when he only had 50 to bet, the whole room knows that, you're going to get a laugh. Now on a stage, no one knows Billy. So
Nope.
the Billy has to be all betters. It has to be made for the entire audience to understand. That's the difference between a table comic and a stage comic. And so when I was first doing comedy, I was doing these over the top characters. So on stage, it translated very, very well. It wasn't specific jokes, but unlike you, I had no fear when I had no idea I wanted to be a comic. So my first open mic nights was like, I was like, what is this the hellhole you brought me to? My friends
Yeah, no,
organized
I
it. It
get it.
wasn't like,
I totally get it. I wasn't even sure either until I interviewed somebody else and they said, "You've been doing this for so long. You've talked to so many great comedians. Why haven't you tried it?" So now we're kind of exploring it and seeing what may or may not come out of it. But you're funny and
the co the my, the co the co my bah, my podcast's the co-host of my podcast. Wow, that was hard. The co-host of my podcast, she's a writer, she's funny, she's an amazing co-host, she's loud, Jewish, obnoxious, so it's perfect. So she started doing comedy, and she's building it. And if you have that bug in you, do it. There's so
yeah.
many venues. There's doesn't have to be 900 seats in Montreal. It could be and it could be whatever, a comedy nights like afternoon set. The amazing thing about now is compared to back in the day, back in the day, you had a comedy night, an open mic night, you had to put a flyer up, you had to hand out cards. Now you have 6 followers. If 2 of them show up and they bring 2 more, you have 6 people in the audience. And so you have more of a chance to get up, but you have to get up. That's one thing I'll tell you. You have to get up,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
the more you get up, the more you get up, the better you'll be. I've been doing comedy 30 years. I will tell you, throughout my comedies, I've seen comics where we were horrendous, and then maybe like 10 years pass, and I see them somewhere. I go, wow, they got there. They they figured it out. They figured their voice. They figured their styling. I always say, see, back in the day when I was doing when I began doing comedy, when I realized, okay, I'm doing this, I there was no YouTube and there was no Instagram, so I found a comedian that I loved, and I went to the Museum of Television and Film and watched his styling and cadences. and learned off of him how to design a joke. Allan King, he was one of my favorites. Obviously, Jackie Mason and all the others. And I had the thrill of working in the Catskills, so I got to see old school comedians. So I learned from them. But you have to kind of find who you're like and watch them and watch their cadence, and then just put your premises and your jokes into it.
Yeah, that's why I was able to, I think, in part have the confidence, was because I've interviewed so many and heard so many different processes of writing and all of that, and then yeah, watching other people. So miles and miles to go, but decades probably. But I'm excited to see where it goes.
No,
Um,
don't say miles and miles to go. Just say I'm on the road. It makes it sounds so much nicer. No, I'm
yeah,
on the
yeah,
road rather
I'm on the
than
road.
you already got off the exit. You're on the road. So
Yeah,
it's
that is true. I appreciate that. But
yeah.
I don't, yeah, I don't want to turn this into a personal workshop and waste your time. I want to ask you though about your writing style. Um, do you go up on stage and write stream of consciousness? Do you bring a notepad? Do you write it down and then go up and perform it when you're working out new material? Or has it changed over the years, Modi?
There's premises. I'm not a comic that can sit in front of a computer and I'm not a comic that can sit. I have ADHD, dyslexia, stuttering. The less I sit, the better. I come up with a premise, some kind of a joke. Right now, I'm working a lot of material about how, I'm established as a Jewish comedian, and I'm married to a man that was raised Catholic, and we're doing comparisons, and I'm with him all day long, so we things come up while we're doing it, and I write them down. I text it to myself, and then I see how to inflate it and make it funnier and make it and that's how it works. And then there's the persona on stage. There's people. I grab a mic. I had that energy, and thank God. And sometimes it's not good. Sometimes the joke's not that funny, but I gave it so much that they think it's funny. Luckily, I have friends, and my opening act is great at giving me advice, and honing me. And my husband throws me punchlines that are from God, amazing. And so that's my kind of style. I come up with a premise, and then we build on it. And you just have, for me, I don't know the people's stylings. If anybody ever says to me, I have a joke for you, I listen. Oh, 1 out of 50 is going to be a premise that you're going to build an entire act on. Um, uh, I never not try something, and 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 that's the way I work, and just being on stage and hearing myself saying it. And sometimes, to be honest with you, I'm in the apartment alone. If I can't sleep at night, I'm standing literally in the living room as if I was in front of an audience, working out the like telling the joke as
I love it.
it's the first it's the first podcast I've ever mentioned that, and hoping no one takes me away.
I don't think anybody that important would be listening to.
Uh,
I think you're in good hands. Well, I want to wrap here by talking about we've got the special, which is really funny and
Thank
very
you,
smart. Absolutely, you're
thank you.
touring as we mentioned off tape. You're coming to Denver here in when are you coming to Denver? In soon. Well, not it's in the fall, I believe. Um,
December, I think
December, yeah, at the Paramount.
the worst time to fly to Denver is when I'm coming to Denver. We've
Yeah,
been
you're in for a
usually
treat.
usually my our booking, our touring manager nails it. We're in Florida for the winter, and once in a while you get like Denver's not where you want to be flying into. You got to come in 4 days early just in case there's
Well,
a
I don't know. I mean, the
snowstorm.
weather changes, so you could have a warm day. I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
but
excited for that. But yeah,
I'm
who
excited for
knows?
Denver. It's my first Denver show that's not an event show. It's like a theater show, and it's a part of Paul. It's a part of the special that's out is called Know Your Audience. It's on YouTube. Anybody listening, enjoy it, and also make sure it's clean and wholesome, and it's something you'd want to watch with your parents. So if you have parents or grandparents that don't know how to get the phone to pair with the TV, go over, watch it with them. It's a fun moment. Do that. I literally, that's why we're on YouTube. Make it easy. Everybody has it. Watch it with somebody who you don't think is able to watch. It's fun for that, and we've been cutting it up and clipping it out everywhere. And I'm just happy it's out. I can just move on to the new material. And the tour, we have some shows in the summer. We're calling it the Summer Series, and that's everything is on modilive.com. And then the new tour is called Pause for Laughter. Because you have to. The world's insane, and the between everybody being a victim, and everybody being protesting, and everybody's a whole thing. You have to take a few minutes and just laugh, and then go back to whatever you're going to. Just stop looking at your phone, have a few laughs, and then go. So that's the new tour's Pause for Laughter. The Beacon, we're at the Beacon in December 2, which is selling out. We're at the Palladium in London. We are shows in Jerusalem and next month, July 16th, and then we're back in Tel Aviv in September. And again, everything's on modilive.com. And if you want to just get to know me a little bit more, and my husband, and our co-host on the podcast, Periel, I have my podcast called And Here's Modi. Yeah.
It's all great, and that can be found anywhere you listen.
Yep.
Head over to YouTube to check out the special and to check out his website, and we'll link all of that in our show notes and on
Thank
the
you.
YouTube channel, and make sure everybody can connect. Well, congratulations on all the success. Again, just it's awesome when people thrive, and hard work and opportunity have clearly paid off for you. And you're funny. I mean, some of these jokes are just the best, where I kind of find myself almost relating to them too personally, which makes the uncomfortable laughter come out. And
Good.
working clean, and excuse me, and all those things. Thank you so much, Modi. It's great. I'm glad we were able to make this happen, and congratulations. And hopefully we'll get a chance to connect here in December when you come out to Colorado.
Yeah, I hope to see you in Colorado, and good luck with your stand up. Good luck on the road. You're on the road. You're not miles away. However you said it before. Enjoy it. Enjoy when you get those laughs, and keep in mind that you're there to make people laugh. It's not an ego thing. Learn that early, and you're there because someone in the audience needs a laugh, and that's why you're there, not because you need to be to get the laugh. Okay.
Absolutely.